Storytelling has always been a part of my life. It would always start with a character, whatever setting I put them in, and arguably the best part, all the different situations that built their life together. And I often found myself asking, what makes a story a good story? Was it a chain of random events that builds up the story of their life? Sometimes. But if you're anything like me, you want a story that can keep readers reading from the very beginning to the very end. So how do we do that? Well, welcome to the wonderful world of plotting. So why plotting? Why is it important in storytelling? Well, to that I say, what's your story? I could tell you my story. I could tell you about my birth. I could tell you about my first steps, or I could even tell you about what I think is maybe my villain origin story involving mac and cheese and peas. But that begs the question, what part of my story do you actually want to hear? Is it the first steps, or is it the villain origin story? Why? Why is that the part of my story that you actually want to hear? What makes a story interesting? That's where plotting can really come in handy. Oftentimes, our stories start as a collection of a bunch of different scenes from our characters' lives. This could be explosive arguments, or this could be tear-jerking moments of self-discovery, or even just big fights between our protagonist and our villains. Honestly, these are usually the parts of the story or scenes that inspired us to write this story in the first place. But can we keep all of them? Every single one of them? Yeah, we definitely can. However, as a writer, if we are wanting a story to stay within a set number of pages or words between 80,000 words to 100,000 words, we might actually have to cut some of it out. But of course, that begs the question, how do we do that? How do we even begin to figure out which of these scenes we need to cut out and which ones are worth keeping? For character-driven stories, this often looks like asking yourself a simple question. How does my character change from the very beginning to the very end? This essentially forces you to think about which scenes in your story contribute to that transformation and which one doesn't. Think of scenes like building blocks. Each block contributes to different parts of this character's transformation. This could be a really big tower of blocks in their story or a really small one. It's completely up to you. But it helps you to figure out which scenes you want to keep in your story and which ones you don't. So imagine that each of these blocks represents a scene in your character's story. Do we use all the blocks, all of the different scenes in their story? Or do we look through them to figure out which ones build our tower of a story centered around the character's transformation? Asking these sorts of questions helps us to be able to figure out which scenes we should keep and which ones we should just cut. Or if you wanted to, you could even hold on to this scene or the block that you want to add in your story and think about how you can maybe change the scene to better fit in your story or your block tower of your character's transformation. See how this helps things be a little less complicated? It helps us figure out which scenes are important and which ones aren't. I like to think of it in the same way that I think of my own story. If I were trying to build a story about my life and what led to my food aversions, I could think of it this way. Do I want the block of my life or scene of my life that represents my first steps when I was a child? Or do I want this scene or block of my life around the villain origin story? Maybe. See how both of these scenes contribute in different ways to the block tower of my story. This is where plotting comes in handy. So this is how you can stay organized while you're trying to write your story. Instead of being like me and sitting down at your laptop and thinking of all these endless situations that you can just throw into your story, you can look at your story and try to find a way that you can do it that is more effective in keeping your readers reading from the very beginning to the very end. This is why plotting is so helpful. You can ask yourself what story you're trying to tell. Look at all the different scenes that you have in this character's story and figure out which of these scenes are building blocks. Build into their story, or at least the story you're trying to tell. It makes it a lot easier. At least that's what I've found in my own writing. I hope it helps you too. So to put it simply, plotting is planning. And as you know, with any sort of creative works, lots of planning goes into making it effective and good. That's true of this video too. I had to plan or plot the different things that I was going to say, and I also was able to do this. I couldn't do it without plotting. Thanks for watching.